uses you as a mimic, and he could do a very good takeoff of you, with which he entertained us many a night, and it was good. But anyway, as I got to know him, I got to like him. But then in the Senate, we were on opposite sides, and there was a bit of a bother because there was a row over something to do with travel and the independent senators, and it got out of control. Ended up with David Norris taking the Committee on Procedure and Privileges to the High Court, and we were all in. There was danger of this was the first time that the Oireachtas was in danger of being brought to the High Court for, I think, abuse of natural justice and a few things like that. But in the old days, any old row was settled up in the Committee on Procedure and Privileges, and people shook hands. But David Norris had different views. But Sean didn't handle it as well as he might have, and he wasn't as transparent as he might have been in the way in which he handled the whole matter, and it ended up with a motion of no confidence being put down in him in the Seanad. I had to lead on that, and I like a quiet life generally, but I had to say some very hard things about Sean, and we pushed it as hard as we could, did all of the media things, and in the end Sean survived, but in fact he resigned shortly afterwards. But two things happened which I think brought out his humanity, for me anyway. The first thing is that our child was born just about the day after this all happened, our son, and the first and largest bunch of flowers to arrive into my wife was from Sean Doherty, even though we were in the middle of major political row. But the day after, there was a meeting of Procedure and Privileges, and I'm not good at this sort of thing, and I was tense and uptight, and Sean asked me to meet him in his office afterwards. And I expected a row, and he simply said to me, "Look, you said some very harsh things about me over the past week." And I said, "I did, and they were justified." He said, "I know that," he said, "but as far as I'm concerned, they were political. They weren't personal. Now, if you're prepared to shake hands, I'll shake hands," which of course I did. And he took out a bottle of whiskey, and we sat down. It was only 11:30 in the morning, and I'm afraid we sculled it before lunchtime. But that was Sean. I mean, in the sense that I come from the academic world where people can nurse a grudge for 30 years, take it out and water it every day. Sean was the sort of person, he's like many politicians, I suspect journalists are in the academic category too, Vincent, but Sean was like many politicians I know you don't, indeed, and nobody would have any against you, but he was able to simply say, "That's over," and from that point on, and we had been friends before it, we became friends again, and he was able to do that. There was a huge warmth in his personality, and anyway, that's the way I saw him.
Yeah, he was great mischief too, which was one of the likeable features about him.
Oh, he could be. I mean, he had a way of getting to the ridiculous or the weak spot in somebody, and he could take them off. As I said, he was a great mimic. He could take somebody off, often very close colleagues, and simply, effortlessly, he would become that person as he was talking about them, and he would always hit the spot.
Yeah, and he. You said earlier on that he was reviled by a certain culture. John Waters has been making the point all day that there are two cultures in Ireland, and he represented one of them, and Dublin 4 Fine Gael represented the other. But Dublin 4 Fine Gael types detested him.
I suppose they didn't know him, and I mean there were plenty of people in other parts of the country did as well. But yes, he was the Antichrist. He became the hate figure. There's no doubt about that at all. And it was very easy to categorise him in, say, the Country Western Alliance and all of these particular things. And it was only in later years when he really had the freedom as a member of committees that people saw that he had very strong forensic skills. He could go in, he could cut through an argument, analyse the different facts, and he could be very, very effective.
Yeah.
By the way, Vincent, just an anecdote from Roscommon, which was told to me this evening. Apparently, his mother died at a fairly advanced age. Terry would know this, I think, about 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
And apparently she suffered from Alzheimer's disease in the end. But anyway, he went to see her. He told this apparently recently himself. He went to see her, and he asked her, of course, did she recognise him? And she said, "Yes, you're a politician." And maybe this was Sean hyping it up a bit. And he says, "Who?" And she says, "De Valera."
Well, PJ Mara tells another story about a De Valera, which sadly I can't relay over the airwaves, Vincent. Again, showing Sean that he's shown in this case.
Yeah.
So I tried to start that.
Sean, along with other Ministers of Justice, tapped my phone and just tell the story in connection with that. You may recall that when he was Minister of Justice in September of 1982, there was his car crashed down in the ministerial car crashed down in Kerry, and there was lots of speculation as to what had gone on, and we were trying to find out. It was in McGill magazine at the time. We were trying to find out what went on, and Paddy Agnew was then working for McGill magazine, and he went down to Kerry, and we were getting absolutely nowhere in the story. We knew nothing about it, and I phoned Sean Doherty at home in Coote Hall on a Monday morning. We were going to press on the Monday evening to ask him what had happened, and I spoke to his wife Maura, who incidentally was, and I'm sure still is, a lovely woman, but she got him to phone me back, and he phoned back. And I put it to him, a version of events that was circulating at the time, and I had no idea whether it was true or not. I put it to him that we had established this to be true, and we were about to publish it, and he went ape, completely ape. And I then asked him to tell me your side of the story, and he said it was a matter of national security. So anyway, he phoned back about an hour later, and he said that since we were friends, which was news to me actually, but since we were friends, he decided to tell me what had happened, and I said okay. And he said that Donny Dunn, who was the driver of the car, had perceived that water had got into the brakes of the car, and since they were going back to Dublin later that day, Donny Dunn took the car for a spin out the road to get the water out of the brakes, and that's what gave rise to the accident. So I said to him that since he had said we were friends, I'd pretend he didn't tell me this, and he could come back with another story. So he said he would. So he rang back an hour later, and he was back to national security again. And I said this was utterly pathetic, and I then retold the stories that had been circulated at the time, but I said wrongly as we had established to be fact, and he went crazy, absolutely out of his mind crazy. And I thought this was quite a disproportionate reaction, but anyway, that was it.
No, but I covered that as well.
Just let me finish, Michael Ray.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
And later on he rang that night to find out what we'd done on the story, and actually we'd done nothing because we had nothing, and he was very grateful for this. But I then recalled that I inquired from him why was he going crazy when I raised these matters with him, and he went crazy all over again. Of course, it was only later that I realised that he knew he was talking on a tapped phone, and there was a Garda up in Garda headquarters transcribing all this stuff, and he couldn't tell me to shut up without revealing what had gone on.
The rumours, as you probably know, Vincent, I covered that as well. I spent some days in Kerry as well, actually, for the Irish Times, trying to uncover all these very colourful rumours, none of which were true, by the way. I mean, the rumours circulated on some very, very good-looking, high-profile women television presenters of that time.
Oh, I never heard that.
Come on, you did.
I didn't, actually.
Oh, did you not?
No.
Well, I suppose the rumours were such that there were so many, but that they had been in the car and all that kind of thing, and all of it was nonsense.
Mr. Charles Mitchell, was it?
Vincent, you were around RT at that time. I leave you to speculate.
Yeah. There was a feature of Sean Doherty, Brendan, is that he was held ministerial office for only 9 months or so, and here we're devoting programmes to him. The airways have been full of discussions about him and tributes to him and all that today, and the television news has been full of it and all of that. He wasn't by any manner or means a major political figure, and yet he's very much part of the political culture here.
Well, you helped to make him that, Vincent, you know. I have in front of me your McGill political book of the time, and you have, as Minister for Justice, Doherty has been a disaster. No sooner has story of improper conduct of relations with the Gardaí faded away than another emerged. Now, the real reason why he's important in the kind of telling of all these things is because he was linked to Charlie Haughey. And what interests me, you know, when I hear Maurice Manning speaking there and other people speaking today about how bright he was and everything, this was not his image. His image was not of a bright politician, a bright minister. It was of a rather wooden, uninspiring, uncreative and not very successful minister. Now, I don't know whether that was true, but I think broadly speaking that was his image, and I wonder myself if whether he didn't himself mature as he got out of the embrace of Charlie Haughey and all the stuff that was going on at the time. But your question is absolutely right. He wasn't a big political figure in the ministerial sense, but being attached to Haughey's reputation and everything that goes with it all these years, he comes inside the menagerie, obviously, you know.
Just a point in relation to his family. He's an extremely good family man. That's the fact. His wife Maura and 4 daughters. And last year, his daughter Rachel was elected to County Council. He was very proud of that, the continuity, because Sean's grandfather was a councillor, his father was a councillor, he was a councillor himself, and now his daughter is a councillor in Roscommon.
His father died, I think, in 1973. And
he died, and then he was co-opted to the first period, and was re-elected and head of the poll at that particular time. And just to say that, extremely good and tremendous faith and support, and this is where I think he was hurt more than anything else, and we discussed this in relation to that incident down in Kerry, which was grossly unfair, was totally inaccurate what was done.
Yes.
And there was a lot of political motivation from a certain second largest political party, tried everything to damage him in that situation. But the hurt he had was that knowing him personally, and Mary and myself would know him personally as a family, Maura and us would know each other deeply, that was the worst thing that could happen, that type of innuendo. And that's where he would have said categorically there was not any truth in those allegations, because of his commitment to his family, his wife and family. And he is, above all, I mean, he lived quite a simple life in a sense from a family point of view. He wasn't colourful, he was gregarious and outgoing and colourful, and they're all true. And he was bright. And the sadness really is that his political life from a ministerial point of view was terminated prematurely. He fitted so much in to such a short period.
I think the thing is, Terry, though,
I just want to say that is a fact, and I mean, I
want to let Morris in, because
he didn't have his own image. I mean, he seemed to have very bad relations with the Gardaí. He was himself a former Gardaí, and the one helicopter that we had at the time, he was all the time being photographed getting in and out of a helicopter. None of this helped his image, I have to say.
Morris,
yes, Vincent.
one thing that strikes me as odd about our culture now is that if somebody did something wrong, they're remembered as the disgraced, whatever it is, and there's never any attempt to see other dimensions to them. And in the case of Sean Doherty, people remember him as somebody who fell into some disgrace while Minister for Justice, but there was so much else to the guy.
I totally agree with you, and an awful lot of the coverage all day today, to my mind, has been unseemly and distasteful, because you get the impression from it that the only thing in Sean Doherty's life were the 2 or 3 controversies, which are big controversies, and there'll be a time to analyse them and go over them, but you get the impression that that's all there was to his life. But clearly he was a person who had a huge rapport with his own constituents in Roscommon. He could make friends, and really good friends, right across all political divides. He was great company, and whenever you saw him coming, you were hoping that you'd end up having a chat with him, a cup of tea or a drink or whatever it was, because simply you just wanted to be in his company. And I think that, in a way, today that there has been maybe that's inevitably the way it is. There has been a distortion, and we've lost sight of an awful lot of the good things that were part of Sean Doherty.
Okay, Morris.